somebody might ask a question, well, why in hell's name in the monastery and why in Dong Hai Chuan when he, why in the monasteries did they have people doing just walking and just the static arm postures for somewhere between 6 months and 3 years before they ever had them do the single palm change? You would say, well, what are you talking about? You couldn't learn the single palm change. It's not that hard a movement. Well, in terms of just physical movement, as in let's go to a dance class and learn how to do a four-part, do a four-step, that's true. But in terms of what Bagua is, it's false, okay? So just to try and understand this. There's more to Bagua than most people have any idea about, because most people, the only thing they know about Bagua is after it had been around for almost 4,000 years and it became a martial art. Well, with Dong Hai Chuan, let me just try and put a little bit of this in perspective. Dong did not take a student who did not know how to do martial arts to begin with. He did not take somebody from being a beginner, oh, you don't know what to do, with the exception of a few of the prince's friends, okay? And they are not on his list of 72 students. That's just if you work in the old days for an aristocratic house, and they say, oh, I'd like you to show my friend something. If you want to eat the next day, you better teach him. It's that simple. Or, put it this way, if you don't want to die in the near future, you teach him. So everybody knew martial arts, so everybody, at least, there was no issue of, oh, how do you get your hand and your waist and this and that to connect? And yet, Dong still made many people who have been doing martial arts for 10 or 20 years do the static arm postures for a certain period of time. So he's talking, what the hell are these static arm postures about? And why did they make people in a monastery do it sometimes upwards of 6 months or a year or 2 or 2.5 years? So I want you to kind of get what this is about. So I'm just going to take what we'll be starting next week with, okay? So those of you who've done this, you know the single palm change warm-up, right? Okay, look. A lot of people, if you watch them do it, they look basically like this. They look as though, frankly speaking, they might as well be doing dancing. No, I mean really. I'm not against dance. It's just dance is not this stuff. Okay? I've actually taught the Royal Ballet in my day. Okay? Which was actually quite fun as a young 20-year-old man. Here we go. Now, look at this. So people move like this. No, that's not it. Now, everybody just watch here for a second. You just learned to do this one yesterday, right? Yes? You learned how to do this one, yes? You guys, you learned how to do this, right? Watch me. Because that actually is another static arm posture. That's about actually holding the top of where the etheric body ends at your head. Okay? Did you all get that? That's for them. They know what I'm talking about. Well, remember this? Remember this? Yes or no? Okay. Watch. That's another posture. How are we doing? If you have the chi, if you can make this one, you can make this one. Hey, how about you get everything to flow out of your body to your feet and your hands, to your fingertips? And it flows to your feet and your hands to here. And it flows from your feet and your hand to here. And it flows from your feet to your hand to here. And all the way down, and away we go again. And that's a bit of a different thing than just... But to be able to actually connect and open up your body through just doing this, okay, is really hard. As a matter of fact, I would say it's almost impossible. The static arm postures are set there to make sure that everything that's in your body when you're walking like this is really there. To make, when you're just even just going to reach this one point for 1/10 of a second, okay, you've been walking in the static thing for a long time, and you know what happens? This is how you start. Now watch me. And you eventually fill it. Well, when it's filled, and you have these different static arm postures, and just like you guys are doing these things here, there actually were a lot of other static arm postures, not just the points of the single palm change, that would have enabled them to go into doing the single palm change. Then, when you have the qi and everything inside you, and that's flowing through, and you learn how to connect it, then you go to the next stage of the game is, well, okay, now you're connected. Or another way of putting it, you have a carrier wave, an unbroken carrier wave. Okay, well now, what's going to go on the carrier wave? But the point of the static arm postures is to create an internal carrier wave inside you. The point of the static arm posture, those who were here last week for the I Ching, is that in the monastery, until you had the light and the sound, one or the other, completely clear throughout the whole of you, you never started the single palm change. You weren't allowed to begin. That took place in another part of the compound. See, it isn't like it is now. The way it was in the old monasteries is like, if you were doing this practice, well, it took place in this part of the monastery. And then when it was, and you did a different type of practice, it took place across the end of that field. And there were walls in the middle, so you couldn't see what was going on. So you had to focus on what you were doing, and you couldn't rubberneck. You couldn't become distracted. You couldn't go, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Because if you did that in a Taoist monastery, they hit you with something. I'm serious. As soon as they saw anybody going like that, somebody had a stick and wham! And they kind of went, excuse me, what are you doing? Because if you were in a monastery, by definition, you said, I'm here for spiritual business. And if you weren't doing spiritual business, nobody was going for it. And the Taoists were different than the Buddhists. The Buddhists would let, big monastery, 7,000, 10,000 people. Taoists, usually you had to, even before you could really be in a monastery, in the old days, you had to just sweep and clean up and clean the place for anywhere from 1 to 3 years while they just watched you and figured out if you had what it took to engage in spirituality. Now, if you go through something like that, hitting you with a stick is actually quite nice. Because right now, if you go through the martial art world, or you even go through a lot of the meditation trainings that are out there, or you go through a lot of the yoga trainings that are out there, the Chinese had a term which more or less defines it. Okay? They just called it empty movements. Nothing in it. A bit like if you had a beautiful car body but no engine, no transmission, no electronics, no shocks, no nothing. Just a nice, pretty looking shell. If you go past the shell and you actually want something inside the shell, or what would the joke be, I guess, probably nowadays? If you have a wallet, if you actually want to have money in it or credit cards that you can use, as opposed to bounce on you, hey, you got to fill that with money, don't you? You have to fill it with credit cards that have a credit line. Otherwise, all you have is a pretty looking wallet. Well, this stuff, the real stuff in every tradition, always has to have a structure to put everything in. But then the main point is to fill the wallet. It is not to have a wallet. It is to fill the wallet. Because who gives a damn about the wallet? It's the cash. Or, let's put it this, whatever the medium of exchange is. Can you all follow me? This is the central point I want you to get. Okay, so now the next thing we have to look at in static arm postures is this. The object is eventually to do what in Chinese is called lengthening. The Chinese term is chang. Now, chang does not mean stretch in the normal sense. It just means to elongate, to get longer. So, for example, if I were here, my fingers are there, okay? I just elongated. Can you all get that? But it's not necessarily that it comes from stretching tissue. The object is to release the nerves, and then through releasing the nerves, slowly the tissue stretch. But in Bagua, you have something that's terribly specific. Most people would think, well, I'm here. Well, let me take this posture. I think this is going to be easy for you to see. Look at my back right now. I'm just here. I want my arms to stretch out. Watch how I do it. I don't do it by stretching my arms. Look at my spine, look at my back. Can you see how that allowed my arms to go out? Now, depending on how tight your back is and everything, that's going to take time. Okay? But now, here's another thing which you may not be able to recognize. Eventually, this is a very major thing in Qigong. You're also not just going to have your arms go forward by your back opening up. It's that you're going to go through your armpits into your internal organs. And if you just can kind of see this, I'll put it as close as it can go. You do it by actually opening up the space inside your internal organs. That then releases everything in your back that's holding your arms. So you're not stretching out by necessarily going for what the end of the thing is. You're going for where it's coming from. So for example, the normal thing is people would think, well, if it were this cane and that's my shoulder blade, that I'm trying to stretch pretty much my arm or maybe my shoulders out. Well, not really, because then you want to go further and the actual stretching is coming from your back. The next level of stretching, hear me, is going to come from inside your pelvis. And that's either going to be by tucking your pelvis under like this, just look. That's about as far as I can go, but if I take my butt and out, my arms will come out further. And then at the end, you're going to open up your legs and you're going to open down to your feet. Now the principles that this is involved with are all taught in the Qigong, the marriage of heaven and earth. I'm just letting you know that that goes directly into Bagua. It's not tangential. It's very direct. But I at least wanted you to understand how the translation was done from one to the other. Now, you have something else here you need to consider. That is how your arms go, look. Back. You see how that gave me more room? My elbows are literally frozen in this position. I don't have more room in my shoulders, but as I open up my back, all of a sudden my elbows get more room, my fingers get more room. As I tuck my pelvis, that allows my back to open up more. As I open up the inside of my pelvis, that's more as I open up the legs. So do you got this basic idea, yes or no? But now we go to the mechanism through which you should do all these things. Most people would think, well, I want to get my arms longer, so what do? I focus on my hands and everything else. No. Every single time, you have a certain length of step. So maybe you're like this, or maybe you're like this. Okay? It is the walking, it is the stepping through which you stretch your body. It's not that you do your shoulders and your back and your pelvis and your feet. It's that you start from your feet, and as your feet open up a little bit more and stretch you a bit more into your butt, well, that releases your back. So you use the walking itself to stretch you out. It's the walking that stretches you out. It's not your walking and you're stretching your arms. It is the stepping itself that stretches the inside of your body. And that is where I use this analogy all the time because it's really true. I don't know if any of you play pool, but you don't take the pool tip and go like this. You shoot an arrow, you don't grab the tip of the arrow and throw the damn thing. No. And it goes from the back. Well, here in Bagua, this thing happens because it goes from the feet all the way to the fingertips. Now, this principle is also described in the Tai Chi Classics. And in the Tai Chi Classics, it said, you know, the motion of Qi begins in the feet, moves up the legs, goes up the back, out to the fingertips. It doesn't actually mention the crown of the head, but it should. But that was all implied, and everybody knew what it was all about. And that's the coming up. Well, Bagua doesn't take it just that, oh, you know, like you want to go out and you come up your fingers. Every step does this. So the stretching of the body, the opening of the body, the lengthening of the body, everything that you do in the marriage of heaven and earth to get yourself, you know, more opened up, happens from your feet. Okay. Now, obviously, okay, this one is just a general posture. The simplest way of putting it, can you actually get your arms to connect to your body? You follow me? As opposed to, they're just kind of hanging out there like, you know, I don't know, piece of paper slapped on with some glue onto a tree. They're not actually connected, okay? In Tai Chi, for example, there's a very famous phrase by Yang Cheng Fu that said about pushing hands, don't hang your dead meat on me, okay? Well, what that meant was that from your whole body was not alive ending up at your fingertips. It was just that, well, you had a bloody heavy arm and you stuck his arm on him. The same principle would also apply to Bagua, but it's about the aliveness, that it's not your hands, do you understand, that are dead. It's that all this stuff is coming through your whole body, and your whole body becomes alive. Like the whole thing is just a live wire. The whole thing is a very living thing in your feet, in your bones, around your muscles, in your organs, in your brain, the works. Most people do physical exercise. They can move their body very mechanically, but the inside of their body doesn't feel terribly alive. And now, why do you need a body that's terribly alive? Well, this goes back to meditation. If the body itself is not alive, the mind will remain dead. That's a very basic Taoist thought. Do you understand? And also, if you talk about stress, if you could actually feel and be aware of what an alive body is like, believe me, when you see stress is making your body go dead, you know what you're going to say? No, I don't want to die. I want to stop this now. But most people are not able to feel if the inside of their body is alive or dead, so they go in stress from dead to deader to even more dead to God knows if anything's alive anymore, and it just keeps on, you keep on deadening yourself. The object of all this is to enliven your body. One fundamental principle, I can read it, I think it's in my first book, the meditation book, Relaxing into Your Being. There's a chapter in it that talks about making the body conscious. It's not a joke. It's for real. Read it. Because all of that directly also applies to Bhagwan. Okay? See, Bhagwan, the monastery, was a high-level chi art. It wasn't a beginning or it wasn't a developmental chi art. It was a high-level chi art. So it's not just that, okay, here, oh, well, of course you're going to twist your arms. Yes? You're going to twist your arms, and you can just use the twisting of your arms, no doubt, to open up your back. Okay? You can use the twisting of your arms this way to open up your back and your pelvis. But the real thing that you're looking for eventually is, look at my foot. All I can do is kind of put it here. It is the twisting of your foot. It is the motion of your toes. It's got to move where you can see it, Nancy. I can't levitate. Well, it'd be a problem if I did anyway. Look, watch this. If you can just kind of see my toes are over the edge, is that I want to turn my arms. Eventually, it's not, I don't turn my arms. Look at my toes. The turning of the toes goes through my whole body and it ends up in my fingertips. Just as there are methods to get your fingertips to go, and you'll start making your toes turn. You'll do it from the opposite direction. So you have to have this idea that your foot is going eventually to become just as alive as your hands are. And the real thing of Bhagwan is that everything is generated by the foot. It's not generated by the arms. And the Dandian is a translation device as opposed to the primary source of the juice. Okay? Well, put it this way. It is the walking itself that charges the lower Dandian. That's probably a more accurate way of putting it. Three postures. We're going to take, so two postures. We're going to do this one and we're going to do this one. So the first thing is here, okay? What you're going to do to start, you're going to start with the stuff that's easy, not hard. And then you're going to work your way down to the foot, because the foot is the hardest. It's the most powerful, and that's why it's the hardest. But here, what we're going to look for is just, at least from the shoulders, watch me. And watch his hands come out of his body. Coach Andrews, it's fine. Is that better? We think it should be better? Okay, fine. All right, well, do me a favor. Well, just put that more out because I can't be in two places at one time. Okay. As I twist, let your arms just go completely easy. And then just put your arms up in the air because we're trying to show, shall we say, from beginning. Now watch. This goes inside. Look what that's doing. Can you see how that's twisting? And look at his hand, how it's getting out. And if you twist more here, do you watch him come out a little bit more, yay or nay? And as you twist here, he comes out a little bit more from his back, yes or no? And then as he comes here, he comes a little bit more out from his back. Is this visible to all of you? That's a question. Okay, so that's good. So now you're going to kind of face 45 this way. Okay. Sorry, wrong direction. This way. There we go. Now watch. Now, he's got this twisting here. Look, you see how that's making his arms go out? But now, let's turn with your back. Sorry, turn your back to him. Now what we're going to do is we want that twisting to open up his spine. So somehow the relationship between his arms going like this, you watching his spine lift, yes or no? And this is how I'm twisting his arms. Okay, so I'm twisting his arms. And you see how that's opening up his spine? Now, if I twist at a different place, let's say along his forearm, look at his lower back. Did Joel watch the lower back come up, yay or nay? Again, he's not doing anything. I'm doing this just from his arms. But it's called A is connected to B, so if you move one, the other one goes with it. Okay, now, let's say now that we're getting down, I'm getting down more around this area. Watch his butt. Excuse me, I just have to kind of get you in there first. That's the lower back. Now watch. Can you see his butt releasing, yes or no? Now, the question becomes, well, if he twists his butt muscles, it would actually make his arms move more than if his arms are moving his butt muscles. So, for example, let yourself just go completely slack again. All right, now turn around to a 45. We got to somehow turn sideways. Yeah, put one foot in front of the other. Can all of you see his rear end and his arms? Well, now watch. If I make his butt muscles twist, watch what's going to happen. Can you all see how it's rippling from the bottom through to the top? It doesn't matter if you have something, twist from one end, or you twist from the other. You know what the result is if it's connected? The whole thing turns. The whole thing twists. That's the object. And again, a twist only goes to 70%, not 100, or you might just pull something out. Now, so now he does that. So now we kind of put his arms back. And now, okay, Bill, you should be able to do it. Now really twist your legs so it's really obvious. And then let's see what happens to your arms. See if that twisting of the legs can go up and again allow his arms to release. Did it move? Now do your calves. And now, forgetting the whole business, just do your feet and see if you can get your arms to extend strictly by twisting your feet. Now, this is actually more level 3 stuff, to tell you the truth. I want you to get something. 1, 2, 3. Just that far. So if you do Rosho, tell me something. What posture did you just see? Isn't that this posture? Yes or no? Isn't it? And this is one of the postures where if you don't have enough juice, or for example, if I do that and Isaac doesn't, I just can basically make him, so there's really not a whole lot he can do. Okay? There's not a whole lot he can do. And he tries to do something on me and he tries to get up here. If I can hold that, he can't get in. Hi, Isaac. He can't get in. Okay? Now, wait a minute. But here's another posture that's terribly common, as we just kind of do this. This is a terribly common posture. What does this look like? Okay? Terribly common posture. Yes? You see this one? Well, hell. Terribly. He's trying to figure it out. Excuse me. It's a terribly common posture. So I'm trying to show you there is a relationship between the static arm postures and Rosho. Now, of course, when you're doing Bagua in general, if you do stuff, it's more about, what's that? That was this. It's actually this, but still, this arm at least is this posture. Or Isaac goes to get me and I do some, well, hi, Isaac. What's that? It's a little bit higher. Will any of you notice that that's a pretty straight shot into his neck? So you have two things. If you talk about martial arts, you know what the big problem is? For example, if I went off like this, well, if Isaac is just strong and I'm going to go hit him, just bring my arm down. Just bring my arm down. I'm screwed. Now, let's look at now the next posture. So just in terms of these, this one could be over here, the height of your heart. The lower one's your lower dantian. The middle one's here. So you're gradually doing something that's going to raise your chi up your body. You're getting that different static arm postures will stabilize the chi at different heights moving upwards. Or for that matter, if you have postures like this, moving downwards into your legs. So another major thing that static arm postures do is they actually are used to stabilize the chi. So if you can just kind of look at me, it's kind of hard to say, well, oh yes, well, if your hand's here, it stabilizes your energy at this height of your body. So what do? You're going to get some flake who's going to go, oh, well, hell, hey, got my chi in my heart? Cool. Got my chi in my throat. And the thing is that if you don't actually really get how to go into it and make it happen, the information is useless. Can you follow me? If you know what's going on, you can use it. Okay? Oh, you can get the basic things, but for something like this has to be shown. And what I have to say is either you can see it or you can't. I can't give you psychic vision. I can't get you to see chi unless you can. But for those of you who've got eyes, just watch something. This is not making anything happen in my lower dantian. But now watch. Can you all see like there's something sitting there? Yay or nay? Well, that's it. That's at this height. Okay, wait a minute. We'll go to the next one, right? You go like this. I don't know. Got your arms up in the air. But watch. Now the chi settles at that height of your body. And so you walk a long time until, okay, well, got to here. And then there's various and sundry other little postures, which I'm not going to go into, which are just about now. Okay, when you have it here and here, there's ways in which then you start linking it up, both in the single palm change and in static postures. Okay? But now look at what the next one is. This ain't going to do that much. But now watch. The chi in the heart area just flat out activates. Now, for those of you, for example, this thing, where do you see this in martial art Bagua? Fwat. Fwat. Okay, I mean, this is like a pretty basic thing. Where do you see this in Rosho all the time? Come here, I'm not going to. You're doing Rosho all the time, all the time. All the bleeding time. I'm serious. Boom. All the time. That's just my hand in front of my heart. Can you see this? Now again, get this. And see if you can see the way this is opening up the energy right in the heart in the central channel. That's a big thing about this particular posture. So, as we take it one thing here, remember it's the same bit, right? Just take one hand, right? So, okay, so you got to like twist your hands out, but shoulders got to turn, elbow, wrist, and then your shoulder blades open up, and then your back opens up, and then your ass opens up, then your thighs and your feet, and here you go, right? Then you have the other hand, which is basically doing the same damn thing, except it's facing this way, inside. So again, you go through, your forearms, your arms, your back, your neck, you get down to, finally get down to the end of your feet, and away you go. It comes out, and it's both of them at once. This posture of being on the central channel and doing this is the first one of the classic monastic postures that was used to drive the energy from the left and right channel into the central channel. I'm not saying you can do it or not, but I'm saying that's what it is. Okay? How are we doing? So let's go through this again. So let me just show it on someone else so I can just kind of, again, you can look at me. Look, boom, there we go. That's what's happening. So as you're doing it, see if you can just kind of get. Watch. Now you have two ways you can get your hands to move in between these postures. The one thing you can do is that you could start off like this, right? And you could bring your hand all the way down and then go into this. Yes? That same up and down bit. Second thing you could do is that if you're walking for a long time and you got your hands up here, then you could simply make your hands come down. See what I'm doing? And then when they started getting near the point, do the twist in and link to your dantian. You could do that. Now, if you're on this one and you want to go up, this one is pretty easy. If you've gone this way, it really isn't that hard just to go out. Yes? The standard way that it's usually done, and again, if you want to now go from this one to this one, of course, you could bring your hands down, especially if your arms feel like they're falling off, and then you can bring them back up again. But you also can do this. You also, can go from here, and now watch. See how my hands are coming in toward the center? And then they go out again. That's if you don't want to stop moving. So you do this again, watch. You're over here, right? Now watch. Your hands twist into the center, yes? See how my hands are crossing? And then, whoomp, they go forward. And that's how you do it. No, you finish this way. Palm facing you. Palm facing you. Elbows down, 2 palms forward, at the level of your heart. Let's put it this way. As long as you make the link to the heart, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit above or below. The issue is that it links to the heart. Now, Craig, can you come here? Or it's fine. You just take your shirt off. I want to just make a few points about this. Now, you may have had trouble messing with your shoulders nest before, but just put your hand in this position. Let's just take one hand down. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. This is your shoulders nest. I want you all to get one thing. The further out your hand goes, the more your shoulders nest goes in. Because part of what this is about is driving the energy of the left and right channel into the central channel, which means that if it's not going down the left and the right channel, it is not going to be driven into the central channel. Okay? Did everybody get that? That's just the straight energetic mechanics of the thing. So the point is that, let's say he's just going to do it higher so it's visible. So he's like this. As his hand goes out, watch. The further his arm goes out, the more his shoulders nest goes in. That's the rule. And it gets just a little bit harder when you got to do it on both sides. No doubt it gets harder. That's just kind of the name of the game. Yes? So if you guys got the idea, and all the other stuff I said, you know, about all that twisting and everything, it's no different than posture 3. It's no different than posture 2. It's no different than posture 1. In other words, you're doing the same thing. I want you now to start really just having this one giant idea about static arm postures in general. And that is that it is the walking itself that should be the way that you generate the stretching and opening up of your body, the lengthening of your body. It's not the idea that you lengthen your arms or your back or whatever. You're going to do that in the beginning because you can do nothing else. Can you follow me? It's just like if you have a kid who's in the first year of, you know, school learning how to add. I'm sorry, they cannot do differential equations. It's not possible. But understand that math eventually goes there. And if nothing else, keep your eye on the ball, because what I'm describing about stretching your body with the walking is not differential equations. It's long division. Do you understand? And long division isn't that far down the line of mathematics. Okay, but it's definitely not addition, subtraction, and multiplication. But if you know that you're moving toward that point, I showed you how to fill in the gaps. But keep in mind that eventually the whole thing is that it's every step with your foot that's opening up your body, and it is the opening up of your legs and your feet that keeps your body open. Okay? It is not just what gets you into it, it is what sustains it. It is what causes the turbine, when it starts hitting 100 revolutions a minute, to stay at 100 revolutions a minute and start moving toward 200 or 300. Because eventually it's everything that you're doing with your legs and moving, that's what opens up your arms and the inside of your body. Likewise, eventually it is the way you're stepping with your legs and what you're doing with the opening up of your body and all the various Neigong ways it happens that starts giving you the energy to go to each progressively deeper level of your mind you go to with meditation. Those of you who were here last week for the I Ching meditation, I was just taking it like what you needed to resolve inside yourself to eventually be able to cross over and contact the I Ching. You take all that stuff before about light and sound and dissolving inside of yourself, that's also part of this. Are you following me? This was one of the practical ways they did it. And later on, the monastic tradition, the way you did these big turns and all these turns and all this kind of stuff, and the different ways the single palm change could be done to actually manifest the energy of either any triagram or hexagram. This was the method, the walking method. It was the walking and the sitting, and the two just crossing over like this constantly, to where eventually they become one seamless thing. Because as in life, you don't just sit your whole life and you don't just move your whole life. You know, there's nobody who's hyperkinetic and moving every second of every day. But sitting and moving, being still, even if you're lying down and sleeping, the sense of your body being still, your mind is still there, your spirit is still there, your soul is still there. It didn't go anywhere. When you're moving, it becomes very easy to get distracted, but if you can actually keep that ability to move and do things fluidly and still be aware of what's in your spirit and your mind, fair enough. Likewise, your chi does not stop moving when you sit. It doesn't stop moving when you stand. It doesn't stop moving when you move. It doesn't stop moving when you lie down. It doesn't stop moving when you interact with people, either talking to them or having sex, or whatever else you interact with them with. The only question is, how well does your chi move? It's not a question of if as soon as it stops moving entirely, you're off the hook, you're dead. Then you have to deal with what's inside you, because what's inside you is not going to die. You're going to still have to deal with it. So anyway, this is the monastic tradition. The martial art tradition doesn't go that far. It's real simple. Get a lot of chi, get a mind state you don't gap out. Understand how if you're present and they're not present, how you can basically defeat them, I believe is the polite term. And fair enough. Nobody ever said that Dong Hai Chuan was an immensely spiritually developed man. But he learned the meditation techniques that were very basic to the monastic one, that allowed him to have the psychic capacity to read people, to know what to do, to be able to get that things were going to happen before they happened, as in somebody was going to hit them. The famous story about him, which kind of says it, is he had he was in a seat and he was leaning against the wall, and there was an earthquake or there was something, and the wall went, and next thing you know, his students are looking, he's just sitting right behind him. Well, he knew it was happening, he just moved. Rather than he just sat there and the wall fell on top of him and he was dead. So now you have a very, very simple thing, but these are methods that directly tie into being healthy and strong, living a long life, but they're not things that necessarily change the soul. They're not things that necessarily truly change what's at the deeper levels of your emotions or your thinking or your psychic capacity, or for that matter, your karma. Can't go there. Sorry about that. No. Dung never claimed it. None of his students claimed it. Now, my own personal teacher, Liu Jie, for example, those methods that Dong Hai Chuan taught, meditation methods that were related to the martial art of Bagua that he taught, he learned those from Zhu Wenbao when he was a teenager, and later. Zhu Wenbao was one of the very close students of Chen Tinghua. Okay? He learned that, but he said, excuse me, exactly how he put it. He says, well, yes, the meditation they did in Bagua as a martial art was the meditation of small children. And in Taoism, he said, well, I mean, you know, he got as much as a small child would get. Because that was never Dong Hai Chuan's primary interest. Even the story about him, he gets injured, but blah, blah, blah. He meets these two Taoists, and they teach him how to get healthy and get strong, and blah, 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 blah. There was never anything in that story about they taught him how to become a follower of the Tao. That was never present in any story about Dong with those two brothers. And it's because they didn't do it. They didn't have to do it. For whatever reason, they decided to pass what they passed, or who knows where Dong got it, but there was that implication was never there. Liu was terribly clear, especially since he was an original member of the martial art Bagua school, and he then went to Sichuan and he learned the Taoist bit. So he was very, very clear about what it is. Okay? But he wasn't just clear about, well, he knew some Taoist meditation techniques and he used some Bagua and he threw them together. No, he was terribly clear about what was the meditation method they did in the monasteries to go there. And since Liu was considered to be a Taoist immortal, he actually kind of really got how that worked. Okay? And given his experience in Bagua as a martial art and how good he was, I am quite sure there weren't that many people who knew more about how Bagua would work as a spiritual thing than him. I doubt it, because he already walked in having the basics about as strong as you could get it. And he walked in already having a clear mind. Those two prerequisites, you know, that's the equivalent, if you want to go to a college, of having 800s on every test you will ever take. All of them. Not just SATs, whatever, all the other ones they got. So he walked in there not kind of learning it from scratch. And on the top of that, he spent 10 years learning it. Okay, and I was very fortunate he passed that on to me. So we're trying to at least get a little bit of it. It takes time to build up.